Gracias. Lo siento, mi español no es muy bien. So I'm going to give my presentation in English. I want to thank all of you and the coordinators of the event for inviting me to speak here and for your time to listen. I've really enjoyed over the last 2 days meeting with many of you and talking to several of you. I come from a background of outsourcing myself and started in it about 20 years ago. And I outsourced with some developers in India, later expanded to the Philippines, and also have some developers in Argentina. And one of the things I've learned this week, just in these last few days, is looking at my own company and what I've done with my company that I think might be some value to you and your companies. I see several of you are doing the same sorts of things. I evolved my company from being an outsourced consultancy to doing more in-depth future research and development and starting to follow future trends and then move more and more into actual product development. And so Woven is actually a company that we've spun out of the consulting company. And the basis of the company, I'm sort of going to be presenting in the following slides, in that we are creating now an Internet of Things infrastructure. And when I say that, it's very different from what people think of as Internet of Things. Most of the times we think of it as the thing, the electronics with the application, maybe the mobile app, all as one solution. But what we're developing is general purpose IoT. When I look at a room like this and I think of sensors being put in a room like this, they should be available to any application, not just the specific application they were put in place for. And so that's really what I'm going to be using as an example or as a theme throughout the presentation. Oops. So the first thing is that when I look at technology, I see it as an evolution, or it's very cyclical. We have these cycles that we have gone through time after time. And I really want you to think about sort of this personalization of the internet in 3 different ways. One, how does it affect you specifically? And then how does it affect your family, your children, your parents, the people around you, friends and coworkers? And then how's it going to impact your company and what you do? So if we go back to the very beginnings of some of the more modern and current technology that we deal with, we don't often think about where the origins came from. But the IBM PC is a really interesting example. You had terminals that were connected to mainframes. And the terminals connected to mainframes continued to evolve and become more and more powerful to the point where somebody realized that they could take a special purpose terminal, which really was a computer, and make it a general purpose computer. And that general purpose computer then was able to connect to networks and run applications, and it became much more than what it was when it was just a terminal. And then those became connected to networks, and the networks and the businesses were for very specific purposes. And so you had special purpose networks that were connecting each other. And then as those networks connected to other networks, what came of that was the general purpose internet. So it's not just about the internet being there for particular applications, it's available for any application. Again, it evolved to be very general purpose. I love images like this because that's a fairly recent picture of the backbone of the internet. It was done by an organization called Costa, and it's just amazing to me to see the almost organic nature of what it looks like. So then we can continue to move forward, and we have our cell phones. And the cell phones continue to evolve and get more powerful and had processors, and they evolved into what? Well, now they're mobile devices. They really are general purpose computers that we're carrying in our pocket, and yet they also happen to do voice now. It's that the entire model is shifted from the special purpose communications device to the general purpose computer. What's amazing is to think back that 10 years ago, we didn't have the iPhone. Just in 10 years, that kind of evolution has occurred, and we can look and see that that's going to continue to move and continue to go forward. Beyond that is the cloud. And we talk about it now, but we often don't take the time to think again about what the cloud is or was. I mean, it really started as the web. You had special purpose web servers that provided websites and web applications, and that's it. But we now look at the cloud and we recognize that Amazon Web Services, Azure, even SAP, Oracle, IBM, everybody is now doing what? Well, they're providing general purpose computing on the internet. So again, this cycle just continues to evolve. So we have all of these laptops and mobile devices talking to applications in the cloud that are now sort of returning to this model of terminals talking to mainframes. It's just much more decentralized now. And at the same time, we are seeing that there are issues with the architectures that are being developed. When you look at the recent DDoS attacks on DNS that have shut down services, when you see Amazon losing a data center, an S3 in their storage, and they were able to take down applications. Again, there has to be some rethinking in the model we use to move into these environments. So with Woven and what we're doing in IoT, we're constantly looking at sensors and data streams and all of this for personalization. Now, personalization has been around for a long time, but we just don't really think about it. If you think of your credit cards and the banks and the loyalty organizations, all of these have been tracking you and me for years, for a long time. They know how much money we spend, where we spend it, what we spend it on, how often we spend it. And so they've been gathering information about us that they can use to market and advertise to us. If you were looking at mobile devices, again, as we carry them around with us, there's constant collection of data about us and who we are, and where we're going. Google's using your mobile phone to know when businesses are busy, because even anonymously, they can tell how many cell phones are clustered at a particular location at a particular time. And then going into your car, we have telematics. I recently upgraded. I have a Nissan, not even a very high-end car, and it has constant connectivity to the cloud, constant data going back, constantly streaming information about where I am. And insurance companies can use that to customize our rates or to find where the car is stolen, to understand the driving patterns that we have. And now going into the home, we have all of the information that will start being gathered around our home. But all of this is getting very complex, and all of this is an opportunity to really think about how to do this well. Because things in the home really could depend on who's home and when somebody is home and who's around at a particular time. But all these are data streams that are going to be coming together, and we have to think about applications that can bring all of these different data streams together to start making decisions. And it won't advance. There we go. So one of the largest things that I see from my perspective changing for all of us as we develop software is what I'd call a transformation of internet interfaces. So it's that everything has moved so quickly that it's altering how we interact with the internet and through what interfaces. Voice is becoming huge. We all know and have seen Siri and Cortana, now Amazon with Echo, and the other corner picture is of Viv, which was recently acquired by Samsung. And we have to think about all of these and how we will interact with applications as we move from web apps to mobile apps, and now we're going to be moving to voice apps. And this is really going to alter things in a much bigger way than we really imagined. Fundamentally, humans have always been the primary interface to the internet and to internet applications. But if you were going to look over the next coming years, it's going to be machines. It's going to be that the machines and the internet are able to start to interact and provide data streams at a rate that far exceeds humans. They're going to be what are feeding the systems that are going to be making decisions. Now, you've heard the same topic several times over the last yesterday and today about, well, now what are we going to do about this? And I think that for outsourcing, what I realized about my own company is that I think you have to be at the leading edge of research and development, looking at what are the technologies that the clients might not actually be asking for, but that will solve their need and provide them some capabilities into the future. So intelligent agents become one of the big things that are going to evolve, and this is more than just if this, then that. That's one of the popular, very basic systems you can see out there. But what we're moving towards is more and more complex rule processing systems and event processing systems. Some of the first things you can see are chatbots. I don't know if anybody's working with any of the chat APIs and the chatbot APIs and developing for clients. What I think is unique about this is not chatbots that you will type to, but it's when you integrate that with the voice interfaces, with the Amazon Echo, with Viv and products like that. All of a sudden, we're now interacting in a very different way, much more easily and conversantly with technology. But moving beyond that, it's when we start to integrate information about ourselves and our environment and the machines and things around us that the real power starts to show up. This is when there's a difference between your car saying that you're almost out of gas and you having a calendar that you're going on an appointment and that there's a route that you're using with Waze to drive there. But when you think about how that could be integrated, that you're actually getting advice on when and where exactly to get gas because it's on the way and you have the time before your appointment, and that the machine's done all that thinking for you, not you having to do that thinking. So there's many other examples that fall into this machine and deep learning kind of capabilities. And when these agents, these models start to become more powerful. You know, we have customers who will ask us about, for example, a snow depth monitor, a sensor that can monitor how deep snow is at an airport or on the roads or at a ski resort. But we had to transform our thinking about this, that they really don't want to know how deep the snow is. What they really want to know is when is it most efficient to plow and to clear the snow. And to make that kind of a decision means that we have to pull data from many more places about what's going on, the cost of the people, the cost of the equipment, the cost of fuel, the rate that the snow's falling, to come up with a much better solution on how to advise them and provide them an answer on when they really want to do that. And that's where, again, you've heard it the last 2 days, machine learning and deep learning come into play. This is probably one of the most fundamentally amazing areas that I've been following recently, and it's because of the rate at which it's changing and the availability to you and me. There are now open source tools that you can start to download and get involved with today to begin developing these applications to take all of this data and create models looking at patterns and producing output. And besides the open source tools that are available that you can use, you can be going to Amazon or Microsoft with Azure or IBM with Watson. And all of these are the hosted sort of SaaS platform solutions to be able to start training and teaching people to use these applications. And so whether you call it machine learning, where we're now, training the models and deploying these models, or you're going to call it deep learning, where you really are starting to get the ability of machines to see and to hear and to process data at a very different level, all of these can take multiple data streams and provide analysis that we can't even understand today. I've seen two recent very interesting announcements. One was a company that's now visualizing and producing images to show what the computer sees in deep learning, because we still don't understand how it does what it does. But even more importantly, one of the big roadblocks over time has been that if you use deep learning and you build a model of personalization or to data process and produce suggestions, there was not an easy way to update those models in real time. And Google had some breakthroughs this week. They announced that they now have got a way that they can start to do that. All of these are critical to learn and begin to get your employees and for us all to have this knowledge on how to use these to produce solutions. Artificial intelligence is going to be huge. The last two things I want to touch on related to this subject is data ownership. Data ownership, I think, is going to be one of the biggest things architecturally that we have to keep considering as we develop solutions. I carry a Fitbit, I walk around, I'm able to get information about how I walk, when I walk, how many stairs I climb, but who has all that data? And if I have models that automate the world for me around that, who has the data and those models? Well, Fitbit. Well, what happens if they go out of business? What happens if they decide they want to charge for it? What happens if I want to use a new application that Fitbit doesn't support? And so where that data exists and how transportable it is and how the models are created, this is where I want you to think again about you personally and how you would like the world to work, but then also your friends and family, who should own their data. And then lastly, how do you want to operate your business and architect solutions to consider these kind of capabilities? And the last thing is privacy and obscurity. You know, I personally don't know that we've ever really had privacy. We believe we have privacy, but we really sort of have obscurity. It just wasn't easy for people to see or come across information about us. But in this world, in the world we live in now, we've got what people would call data exhaust just flowing off of us at all the time. People know where we are and when we're there and how we move around. And so in all of our applications, privacy, you know, in the world is very quickly disappearing. It's going away. And we really want to think about personalization in two different perspectives and how, again, it affects us, our family, friends, and coworkers, and the applications we develop. And that is personalization something that you are given by somebody who owns all your data, or that you begin to develop based on the data that you control and you let other vendors and other entities access that data. So I appreciate the time. You know, we're moving into just amazing times in technology. I sort of love this with the internet and developing, again, with outsourcing. To me, it's just amazing what we're able to accomplish. And hopefully this has given you a couple of different things you can think about in your company and in your solutions and directions you can move. I appreciate your time. Thank you.